I'm sure it's definitely helped me.
Yeah.
Spatially. I mean, I think.
Do you have a pen by any chance?
Yeah, I do have a pen. Paper?
Just no paper. I have.
I'm not sure if I'm very good at this, Hans.
I'll be good. Don't worry.
Sorry?
Don't worry. It's really good.
This is my first real interview. And people always think I'm such a bitch. I'm not sure why.
So architecture, you think it helped you in terms of, because I was wondering, I think in terms of your work, what's the architectural dimension of it?
Well, I'm definitely very spatial.
Yeah.
Like the only way I can ever do a show,
yeah.
I've thought about it for all my shows. The only way I've ever been able to do a show is I have to actually be there. Yeah. And I mean, you call it genius loci, the spirit of the space, and I really believe in the spirit of the space itself. That every show I've ever been, there's no way that I can think what I'm going to do for a show unless I'm actually there, sitting there, and like walking about and feeling like this, the spirit. I'm actually like really, I'm not religious, but I'm not even spiritual, but I'm very, I don't even call it, maybe I'm sensual and stuff. And I do these things every time I'm given a show, where like, and I say like, you just have to leave me alone with the curator, and I just pace around, and maybe it's really cliche, but I wait for like the ghost of the space to talk to me, and how I do spaces, and maybe it's related to architecture, because I look at spaces and I look at, because it's still based on 3D, and it's based on your brain, which is 3D as well, because your brain can escape between what is 3D. I think it's limited.
And so basically, if I think about, because I saw you show at the Secession, which was a kind of an environment, an immersive environment. So that was triggered by the space of the Secession, I could say. So the space plays a role of what you do.
The space completely plays a role for me.
Yeah.
I look at the space, and and based on the space itself, what I'm going to do for the space happens.
Yeah.
And one of the most toughest one is probably like the Zurich Kunsthalle, our friend Beatrix.
Yeah, and why is that the toughest one?
Because it was like 7 rooms.
Yeah.
7 humongous rooms, and I'm not intimidated by like stuff like that, but it was like thinking about 7 things at the same time in your brain as this one piece itself.
Yeah.
And because the Zurich Kunsthalle, it works as a narrative.
Yeah.
You enter the room, and you enter a series of rooms, room, and like I always see a room as a narrative. Like I think I've always seen a show as an emotion, and it's the first time I've mentioned it, because every time I've done an interview and it's like are you an emotional, and I've always said you can't have emotion or not. As a reason, you cannot ever, every interview I've ever done, you have the emotionals or not, because that's because art can be emotional. But for you, I'm gonna say it's an emotional thing, and it just comes to you as a narrative, as a story, and like it doesn't come out to you, and that's why I fucking hate art fairs, and I fucking hate when you sell things, because you see my pieces like separate from in the end, all these objects and all these things. I do secret performances for the Zurich Kunsthalle, like for the 2 mountains. Inside I did a secret performance by only Beatrix and the camera person. So, and like, in the two white mountains itself, I closed everything off and told everybody to go away. And it was just me and Beatrix, and I did a secret thing in there. And is it frustrating? No, it's not frustrating, but no, it is frustrating for people to look at the piece itself and not be able to see what it is, and to see me as a value, in a sense.
So that's the opposite of the art fair then.
It is, which I like art fairs as well because I love money as well. I do love money because we're sitting here, living in my own building in downtown. But I'm not sure. I don't think about these things that much.
But the thing about the genius loci is interesting because, I mean, in the context of a show like Zurich or like Vienna, you know, you react to the space and you say the ghost of the space and all of this. So what about, because architecture is not only reacting to spaces, but it's also building spaces. And you know, when I look today, and I was thinking like the maquette, the maquette of the, you know, of the two rooms you have with A.A. Bronson, no? And things about the space. That's more about building spaces than to reacting spaces.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, you know, maybe if that could somehow lead to architecture, because projection of spaces, or because for the moment you're more, I mean, like in Zurich or Vienna, you react to spaces, but there's also this dimension of projecting spaces. Does it make sense? Or?
No, yeah, no, it makes sense completely. I mean, projection of space is like, but I think that the projection of space is the end result of what you see, Hans.
Yeah.
And that's what it's almost like a light projector.
Yeah.
You put in your drawing, you put in your sketch, or you put in nothing in a light projector. And you put in your thoughts. You could even like whisper. You could even sing to the light projector, and it screens and it projects the screen. But that's the end result of the space itself. And for me, because it's a completely selfish thing, I could give a fuck about what you see as the end result as the projection. You see the projection, and I see what I hope to put in the projection, and you see what the light. It's almost like in a projector, it's a refraction. It's a refraction, not a reflection. There's a very big difference. In a light projector, a light goes in the shadow of the space itself. You don't think of like, you know, Plato's cave or like whatever. You see the reflection, and I'm constructing the refraction. Jesus Christ, I'm being so intellectual.
It's great.
Well, you know, because for all my interviews and stuff, and all this hatred for me, because people look at me, maybe because I think it's an interesting time, like between like me as an artist itself, between me, I've like trajectory, like made so much money, and for interviews and stuff,